Alright, Shalom. I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Rakakadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to all the brothers and a few sisters out there. Unto Israelite foreigners from the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Shalom in the Hebrew, which means peace. Give me a quick show, little history, prophecy. When I was reading about the Roman oppression of Israel, and the characters that was surrounding the surrounding characters, the surrounding cast, so to speak. And one of the main surrounding cast was Herod the Great, or Herodias Magnus, which means Herod the Great. All right, and what was that? Sorry, the same Botanica, Bentiaca, or whatever. It says Herod, by name Herod the Great, Latin Herodias Magnus, Roman appointed king of Judea, who built many fortresses, aqueducts, theaters, and other public buildings, generally raised the prosperity of his land, but who was the center of political and family intrigue in his latter years. The New Testament portrays him as a tyrant, into whose kingdom Yahushua of Nazareth was born. So it's, when you read the history of our Lord, and when he came into the scene, there was a lot of confusion, there was a lot of oppression, violence. He grew up he was put on earth at Israel's darkest time. Okay? Because being oppressed by another nation, period, is not good for anybody. All right? Especially if the taxes are heavy, where you can't make no living, and every time you speak against the system, they'll crucify you or do something towards you to destroy you. So our people was going through a lot of things. And when the Lord came into the scene at the darkest time and the darkest hour under this man's rulership, which the key point to his upbringing is that he was appointed. And when he had nothing to do with being part of the nation of Israel, period. Which the scripture says, and history says it. Proving once again that the scriptures reign supreme. Alright? Reign supreme. It says, the family and early life. Herod was born in southern Palestine. His father, Antipater, was an Edomite. So we know that you are what your father is. Alright? So he was a straight up devil. The sole devil, the adversaries to Israel. It says, as a Semitic people identified by some scholars as Arab, which is not true. Edomites are the so-called white man. All right, they're red. The Arabians have nothing to do with Edomites. And as I was reading this, it kept saying the same thing. So who converted to Judaism in the 2nd century BCE. So they was converted. When you go into the history, John Canus II converted them and but taught them the law, statutes, and commandments. So these devils was believing that, not at that particular time, but they was believing that they were some of the other Edomites too, because when you read about the history of when the Romans took down Jerusalem, that even some of the Edomites was fighting against them. All right, because the Romans were Edomites, but then they identified themselves as Edomites. All right, and it says Antipater was a man of great influence and wealth, whose increase both by marrying the daughter of the noble from Petra in southwest Judea, at the time the capital of the rising Arab Nepentine kingdom. Thus Herod was really which is bullshit, but it says thus Herod was of Arab origin, which is not, although he was a practicing Jew. You are what your father is. So they just right there, it shows you that he's trying to hide his identity. Okay, when Pompey was that general that was also with Julius Caesar and Marcus Crassus, the all right, that famous guy invaded Palestine in 63 BCE. Antipater supported his campaign and began a long association with Rome, from which both he and Herod were to benefit. So it was a lot of undercutting, conniving, backstabbing things that was going on. All right. It says 6 years later, Herod met Mark Antony, whose long life friend he was to remain. Julius Caesar also favored the family and appointed Antipater procurator of Judea in 47 BCE, and confined on him Roman citizenship, an honor that descended to Herod and his children. Herod made his political debut in the same year when his father appointed him governor of Galilee. 6 years later, Mark Antony made him the tetrarch of Galilee. In 40 BCE, the Parthians invaded Palestine. Civil war broke out, and Herod was forced to flee to Rome. The Senate there nominated him king of Judea. So he didn't earn the rights. He was appointed, and he was nominated by a foreign entity to be king over the Jews. All right. So you could see the threat. You could see the things, why he felt the way he felt, and why history the way it went, and why the Israelites was pissed at this man, because many years ago, before the Hasmonean dynasty came about, we was dealing with the Greeks. Okay. And now he was appointed king of Judea, and it says, and equip him with an army to make good in his claim. And this is something that Esau loved doing. When you check out their history, they like to revolt. They like to overthrow governments and put puppet kings or puppet presidents in their stead. When you do the history of what's his face, Antiochus Epiphanes, he did the same thing with Ptolemy VI. The history says, all right. That goes into something else. So they always did stuff to that nature, and they put a what they call a vassal in the stead. All right. It says in the year 37 BCE, at the age of 36, Herod became the unchallenged ruler of Judea, a position he was to maintain for 32 years. To further solidify his power, he divorced his first wife, Doris, set her and his son away from the court, and married Miriam, a Hasmonean princess. Although the union was directed at the ending his feud with the Hasmoneans and the priestly family of the Jewish or with the Jews leaders, he was deeply in love with Miriam. During the conflict between the two tribunes, Octavian and Anthony, which is Anthony, what's his name? Mark Antony. Octavius became Augustus, all right, which was the nephew to Julius Caesar, all right. Well, he was actually his nephew, the heirs to Caesar's power. So there was a conflict. There was a war between Octavian and Mark Antony. Mark Antony settled in the history. Also, a good show to watch is on Rome. He settled in Egypt. All right, he settled in Egypt with Cleopatra IV. That famous Cleopatra in which Elizabeth Taylor played. All right, which Netflix had a problem because they were correct. Cleopatra was not a so-called black woman. She was she came from the descendants of the Ptolemies, all right? So she was an Edomite, a so-called white woman. It says Herod supported his friend Antony and continued to do even when Antony's mistress, Cleopatra, the queen of Egypt, used her influence with Antony to gain much of Herod's best land. After Antony's final defeat at Actium in 31 BCE, he frankly confessed to the victorious Octavian which side he had taken. Octavian, who had met Herod in Rome, knew that he was the one man to rule Palestine, as Rome wanted it ruled and confirmed him king. He also restored Herod in the land Cleopatra had taken. Herod became the close friends of Augustus, great minister Marcus Vespasian Agrippa, after whom one of his great-grandsons were named. Both the emperor and the minister paid him state visits, and Herod twice again visited Italy. Augustus gave him an oversight of Cyprus copper mines with a half share in the profits. He twice increased Herod's territory in the years 2020 and 2020 and 20 BCE, so that it came to include not only Palestine but parts of what are now the kingdom of Judea, to the east of the river in southern Lebanon and Syria. He had intended to bestow the Nabatean kingdom on Herod as well, but by the time the throne fell vacant, Herod's mental and physical deterioration made it impossible. So, let me see. Should I read more? Talk about the break, because Herod was a great builder as well. So, going to the scriptures real quick. Matter of fact, so Herod is written in the scriptures, of course, but I'm going to go to this one. Revelations 12 and 1. It says, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars." And that woman represented Israel. All right, that was the nation of Israel. The sun and the moon for the wisdom and knowledge and understanding. That's what we stand upon. We stand upon the Lord, what was given. Okay. It says the 12, which are the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, Verse 2. And she being with child cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon. Now the red dragon is synonymous with the Roman Empire. All right, with the Roman Empire. So I just read the history of this particular individual, Herod, who was appointed by the Roman, which he himself was an Edomite, which was appointed by other Edomites that was in the power seat of Rome to be king over land what they call Palestine. All right, and it says, having 7 heads, which were the seven heads represented the 7 power structure of Esau Edom. So from Greece, Rome, Germania Major and Minor, France, which is, I believe France was Frank. No, I could be wrong. Yeah, it was Frank. Spain's Espanol, and Great Britain, before Britannia, before it was called Britain. It says, and 7 crowns upon his heads. Okay? And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, which was Judah, Benjamin, Levi, that was occupying in the land when the Romans took over, which the Romans were taking over many lands prior to. While the Greeks were going to war with everybody, the Romans were slowly taking over the whole land. Now, I've been to Greece. I mean, not Greece. Yeah, I've been to Greece too. I've been to Rome. When you go, what is an ark? I'm not sure. I don't think it was the Ark of Titus, but it showed you a map of Rome. Let me see if I can find it, since I'm talking about it. Okay. Well, it's one of them. Well, it showed you the period piece how Rome became. Also happens to be red. Go figures. How slowly it took over the Mediterranean. All right. It showed you. Damn, I forgot. Okay. Like this map right here was. Like this one right here. And then there was another map where it showed more lands was being conquered, and then more lands. Okay, because that's what the Romans were doing. They was spreading their madness through the known world, and all commerce was going through the Mediterranean. And Palestine, Jerusalem, which is right about here. I can't even go further. Can I? What's he saying? Well, anyway, we know where it's at. That's a great trading route. All right, so whoever controlled that route controlled the trading from what we call the Middle East or Asia to Africa, Asia to what we call today Europe. So that was a very important strategy to put in. Whoever controlled that region controlled pretty much the known world. So who was dwelling at the land was the nation of Israel. It says, and did cast them to the earth through their oppression. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered. So there was many children that was born in Israel, but this one particular child, which now I gotta go to Matthew's the 2nd chapter. I'll make this short, a long one. Matthew's 2:1, it says, now when Yahushua was born in Bethlehem, well, Bethlehem means the house of bread. Bayath Lakam, bread. All right. of Judea in the days of Herod the king. Behold, there came wise men from the east. And they did not say it was three. They said they were wise men. So it could have been numerous wise men. So they came from the east. Now Israel has been spread even before 70 AD. So these were Israelites that knew the scriptures, and they knew that the king, the Messiah, would be born. It says, saying, where is he that is born king of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him. And when Herod the king heard these things, he was troubled, because now he knows Israel. We got to really think about it. He knows these people very well, and he knows anything will stir them up. There was a lot of revolts prior to him ascending to the power seat. All right, there was a lot of revolts, and he knows if that word was spread, that there would be a great threat to his life. All right, and it says, and he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. That which is what the council, the scribes, the Pharisees, those that ate at his table, so to speak. That was a position of power. They knew for a fact, if the Messiah would be born, that it will overthrow everything that was handed to them. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Yahushua shall be born. And they said unto him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, and thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, or the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Which the precept to that real quick, Isaiah 9 and 6 says, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. The government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. And these are all titles that was given unto him, and all things that Yahushua accomplished while he was on earth. All right, he's the one that bridges back to the Heavenly Father, because Jake at that time was in a destitute state, more than ever, at the lowest point in our history. Now we surpassed that lowest point right now, of the increase of his government and peace. There shall be no end upon the throne of David. So the line had to come from the line of David, where the kings were born. All right, and upon his kingdom, to order it, to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. All right, so this is what they was quoting when they was telling this this usurper. All right, and it says, verse 6, back in Matthew 2 and 6, and thou Bethlehem, well, no, I read that. 7, then Herod, when he had privately called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared, which is not talking about a star, was a chariot. And he sent them to Bethlehem, and said, Go and search diligently for the young child, and when you have found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also. When they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till they came and stood over where the young child was. So that stars don't move, they stationary. So they was talking about a chariot. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell and worshipped him. And when they opened their treasures, they present unto him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Which gold, obviously, because it's royalty, but frankincense and myrrh has a royal, of course, good sense, but is very rich. So he got presented the great gifts. And being warned of the Most High in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod would seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt. So this wasn't the same night. This was a period of time. It says and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt have I called my son. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, he was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and all the coast thereof, for 2 years old and under, according to the time which he diligently required of the wise men. So that gives us a clue how long it took them and how long they was with the Lord till he was 2. So Herod gave that decree to slay all the children 2 years and under. All right, that's what it was speaking of in Revelation, the 12th chapter. It says, Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation, weeping, and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and which not be comforted because they were not. So that was a cruel, evil act that he did, because he was an extension of the Roman Empire, extension of that great dragon. When you look it up, it was talking about all the male childs. It wasn't talking about when little girls. It was talking about all the male childs, showing that obviously the Messiah would be a boy, but it's the Israelite man that is a threat to Esau. And it says right here, offspring for children, child, a male child, a son. All right, I just wanted to bring that part out. So that's a little back history on that. Go back to Revelation. Revelations 12, I believe it was 4. Right. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and then cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man child, which was Yahushai, who was to rule all nations with the rod of iron, which we just read, the prophecy. All right? The government was going to be on his shoulders. Okay? One more quick precept before I go on. Matthew's 13. Matter of fact, Luke 13 and 32. It says, 31. The same day they came certain of the Pharisees, saying unto him, Get thee out and depart hence, for Herod will kill thee. So this is years later. All right, this is a different Herod. It's not the Herod the Great, because he eventually died for like this. The historical passage said, for mental illness. So he was plagued by demons. So his descendants. All right. Does it say which Herod it was? I'm just trying to see. No, that's not that Herod. Probably the second one. Anywho, and it says, "Will kill thee." And he said unto them, the Lord spoke, Go ye and tell that fox, Behold, I cast out devils, and I do cures to the day and tomorrow, and the third day shall be perfected. So why did the Lord call him a fox? Now I could get that. That's how, because this one I wanted to talk about anyway. Matthew 13, I believe it's right. Matthew 13 and 24. Yep. It says, Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while man slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. All right, tares. It says the kind of darling resembling wheat, except the grains are black. So something that resembles something else. So Herod from his father, all right, and Herod the Great himself, who got with an Israelitish woman, a princess, all right, from the Hasmonean dynasty, who bare children, and his children were looking kind of like everybody else. So when the Lord called him a fox is known for what? Being sly, cunning, all right, real devilish. Because a fox would appear to be what? As a dog, but a fox is not a dog. So right then and there was already tares being planted in Israel. All right. And it says, verse 27, So the servants of the householder came, said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed? Slakia, who's the good seed? Israel. All right, the nation of Israel. That's who the good seed is. It says, Into thy field. The field is the world. From whence then have it tares? And he said unto them, An enemy. So the sole enemy, which is the adversary to Israel, is Esau, Edom. All right. This, having said, he said unto them, An enemy has done this. The servant said unto him, Would thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while you gather up the tares, you root out also the wheat with them. Let them grow together until the harvest, which the harvest is the end of the world. And in the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, which are the angels, gather ye together the first the tares, and bind them into bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn, which the barn is going to be the chariots, okay, the chariots of Israel, which the elect is going to be saved from. So there's many tares amongst us. There's many agents, so to speak. That's why the Herod story is so important. All right, he was appointed king. He was put in a position of power. So everything that came after him was not of the royal seed of Israel, but it was the seed of a usurper. All right. Back to Revelations 12 and 5 now. It says, she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. Psalms the 2nd chapter tells you. And and her child was caught up. So this is not talking about Mary at all. This is talking about Israel. All right. She that brought forth the child was Mary. She bare him, but the child wasn't hers alone per se, because that was the representation of Israel. Okay, and it says, I'm sorry, where am I? And she brought forth the man-child, and was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto the Most High and to his throne, which was Acts, the 1st chapter. All right, because he put his life on the line, and we know the history. Okay. One more scripture came in my mind. Matthew's. Let me see if I can remember this one. Matthew 23. Let me see if it's Matthew 23. Nope. Alright, let me just type it in. Tap that in real quick. There is Matthew 17 and 26. Matthew 17 and 24. And when they were come to Capernaum, that they received tribute money, came to Peter and said, doeth not your master pay tribute? So tribute is what? Taxing. Showing that it was heavily being oppressed. And he saith, yes. And when he was come into the house, thou shalt prevented him, saying, what thinkest thou, Simon, Simon? So he saw the frustration, and he knew his thoughts. Of whom do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute? Of their own children or of strangers? Right? Peter saith unto him, of strangers. Yahushua saith unto him, then are the children free. Because why? They was paying tributary to the Romans. So they was not from the Romans themselves, the governor, which was Pontius Pilate, and before him was someone else, I can't remember, and Herod, the usurper. They was never free. All right? The power structure was completely against them. So they were strangers unto the Romans, and they had to pay tributary, showing that they was never free. And that shows us that we're never free. That's why when you look at the dollar bill, it doesn't have your face in it, you blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. It has the faces of your oppressor. Because this is his kingdom. Alright? He put whoever he wants to put over the people. So, verse 27, notwithstanding, lest we should offend them, go down to sea and cast a hook, and take the fish that first come up, and when thou hast opened his mouth, thou shalt find a piece of money, that take and give unto them for me and thee. Which is kind of heavy. I'm just sitting thinking about it. The Lord made it a way where they still could pay whatever they had to pay and still be fine, which was heavy. So that was a little, quick, low one, not that quick, but the Spirit showing once again that the Bible is synonymously correct with history, because the characters were real. All right, Herod didn't just rule any old place; he ruled the land of Israel. All right, with Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, some of the other tribes were sprinkled into, and he was ruling, and he was appointed by the Romans, which that was a historical fact. So it's showing you that Yahweh Shai, everything about the scriptures is 100%. All right, historically correct. So with that being said, Lo Morning brothers, edify, shalom to the elected nations, shalom.